There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch, Michael Byler.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Folks, it's been a long day, an emotional day in regards to the case of Charlotte Sena, the 9-year-old girl who was kidnapped in Moreau State Park on Saturday at 6:15 p.m. And unlike so many of these cases, there is a happy resolution to this case. And many people who have followed this from the beginning have all been emotionally involved in this because the true crime community follows these cases. And we all know that many times they do not end happily. And in this case, the work of law enforcement, just the amazing investigation, the amazing coordination, the amazing cooperation of law enforcement with each other, with the FBI, with the state police, enabled that beautiful girl you see on the screen, 9-year-old Charlotte Sena, to be found. And right now, the investigation is not completed. However, what we do know is that she's alive, and that's the most important thing. The investigative techniques they used, we discussed that in previous episodes leading up to this day. And when I heard the state police lieutenant colonel said that based on what they saw in this case, it appears that this was an abduction, I did not have a lot of faith that they would find this poor little girl, Charlotte Sena, alive. I thought once I heard the word abduction and that her bicycle was found on the scene, the helmet that she was wearing and riding her bicycle was not recovered, I thought the worst. I thought it was going to be, they were going to find a body. And, so many times we cover cases like this, and that is in fact the result of these cases. And I'm so happy to report that there is a happy conclusion to this. And Charlotte was found, and there's someone in custody right now. The kidnapper is in custody. We don't know the complete details of it, but we are thrilled that the result of this, again, there's a picture of the governor. 9-year-old Charlotte Sena was found alive Monday evening, and a suspect in her abduction was arrested after police tracked him to a camper trailer at a property in Milton where his mother lives, in an adjacent mobile home. And this is according to the state police. Law enforcement sources have told the Times-Union newspaper that the suspect, 47-year-old Craig Ross Jr., allegedly left a ransom note at Charlotte's parents' house before dawn on Monday. The time that was reported by Governor Hochul was 04:20. That's 4:20 a.m. Fingerprints on the note helped lead to his arrest. Governor Hochul confirmed late Monday night, saying at a news conference with state police that Ross had dropped a ransom note again at 4:20 in the morning. State troopers recovered the note after Ross left the area at about 2 p.m. on Monday. A fingerprint on the note was matched to fingerprints from Ross's arrest in Saratoga Springs in 1999 for DWI, or driving while intoxicated. Governor Hochul said at this point, and it's still early in the investigation, there doesn't appear to be a connection from the defendant to the family of Charlotte. However, again, it's early in this investigation. Police raided a number of locations tied to Ross late Monday afternoon, including the mobile home of his mother and the adjacent trailer on Barrett Road, where Charlotte Sena was found. That residence off Middle Line Road is about 13 miles south of where Charlotte Sena lived with her family in Porter Corners near Corinth. The governor said that a vehicle registration for Ross at the time of his 1999 DWI arrest had listed an address that was a short distance from the residence of the Sena family. State police said that Ross suffered minor injuries when he struggled as he was arrested by a state police SWAT team at the Barrett Road residence on Monday evening. An FBI SWAT team assisted in the apprehension of Ross and the rescue of Charlotte Sena. The state police said Charlotte Sena was in good health. She was taken by ambulance to Albany Medical Center, which is routine in these cases. She was in this person's custody for close to 48 hours. So the investigation isn't completed. What we are just counting our lucky stars right now that she's alive, and we'll deal with the other things, and the family will have to deal with the other, potentially any harm that came to her later on. But the important thing is right now she's alive. State police said they had identified an individual as being in the area of the Morrill Lake State Park around the time Charlotte went missing. Further investigation led to the search of multiple residences where the individual is known to reside. A few hours before that notice was issued, a large contingent of state police had gathered in a parking lot at the Saratoga Performing Arts Center off Route 50. Roughly 20 unmarked state police vehicles, military-style tactical vehicles, and at least one helicopter were there, along with troopers dressed in camouflage who appeared to be SWAT team members. They refer to them as SORT, Special Op Response Team. SWAT is sort of a California term that's not used in the Northeast. State police blocked off Barrett Road on Monday evening and prevented motorists from entering the residential street after they raided the property and rescued the girl. At 4:20 a.m., state police were guarding the house. Cars pulled up to a mailbox. Something is left. Identified as a ransom note that had been left behind for Charlotte. New York State police worked diligently to find a match for a fingerprint in the New York State database. And again, the hit came at 2:30 p.m. Based on a DWI arrest that the defendant took in 1999. Identified the location, identified the fact there was a home they could visit. Double wide house suspect's mother. Suspect lived in a camper behind. They did a dynamic entry into the location. That's a tactical maneuver, and within the camper located the suspect. And after some resistance, he was taken into custody. The arrest was made less than 3 hours after state police said their ongoing search had expanded over 46 linear miles. Approximately 400 certified search and rescue personnel from dozens of federal, state, and local enforcement agencies, as well as fire departments, were actively searching for Charlotte after she vanished Saturday evening at the Morrill Lake State Park, which she had been camping with her family and friends. Now, everyone pretty much knows the story. She was riding her bike in that park and with friends, and then decided to take another lap around. During that lap around, which would only take about 4 to 5 minutes, that was when the kidnapper struck, and she was noticed missing by her family almost immediately. And they went out and they discovered her bicycle, and the rest is the investigation and what occurred as a result of this investigation. I'm going to play a little bit of the press conference here with Governor Hochul. I think the whole situation. The whole case is quite emotional for pretty much everyone involved in this case. Um, it's just, first of all, it's an exhausting investigation, an exhausting search, and you're euphoric. I'm sure all law enforcement is euphoric that this little girl was recovered alive and safe, and now she's back with her family. This is going to the press conference.
Good evening. This is a very good day. It's been a long 2 days, but tonight our prayers have been answered. We're overcome with relief and gratitude for this gift to all of us. And it is the people standing here with me that remind me why I'm so proud to be the governor of this state. Incredible men and women who were relentless in their pursuit of finding this little girl. Yesterday, I held Charlotte's parents in my arms. David and Trish, I went to the campsite. I saw the place that she had just been a joyful little girl the day before, riding her bike. I was on the road she rode her bike on, saw where she left it. And her parents were just so overcome with sadness and grief. As a parent, I thought my own heart was breaking. And I said to them, I promise you this, we will bring Charlotte home to you. And as each hour went on, hope faded, because we all know the stories. The first 24 hours, there's hope. When you hit 48 hours, hope starts to wane. But when Charlotte disappeared in Monroe State Park, it was every parent's worst nightmare. But I knew I would be able to have assembled the team of individuals who would not stop. And I want to thank at this moment the individuals gathered here tonight and all the men and women across this state that they represent. And the FBI brought in their specialized trained individuals all the way from Washington to help with this search. I want to thank Deputy Superintendent Richard Allen, Lieutenant Colonel James Barnes, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Mazzone, Major Dennis Shager, for their work. New York State Park Police, Colonel Michael Dodona, the Office of Parks and Historic Preservation, Chief of Staff Randy Simons, Saratoga County Sheriff's Department, Lieutenant Jeffrey O'Connor, the Schenectady County Sheriff's Office, represented by the Schenectady Police Department, Police Department of Schenectady, Detective Sergeant Bradley Carlton.
You know, folks, just so it's clear, I mean, the police did an unbelievable job in this case, just incredible. And I know sometimes it gets a little long in the tooth to listen to all of these praises going on toward the police, but I'm sure for 48 hours straight, not a single one of them got any sleep. This is personal. This is a 9-year-old girl that was kidnapped. They said early on in this investigation, this appeared to be an abduction. And they took that so seriously. And you can bet not a single one of these state police or the FBI or the local law enforcement or the sheriff's office, none of them got any sleep over these 48 hours. And the result is a positive return on all their work by recovering this little 9-year-old girl.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation acting agent in charge, Alfred Watson, who I met yesterday on site. New York State Department of Corrections and Community Services, acting commissioner Daniel Marticello. New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Forest Rangers, Basil Sagos. As I mentioned, when you hit that 48-hour moment, you realize it's going to be tough. And you start thinking the worst. But what happened was extraordinary. The case started to break at 4:20 a.m. this morning when the family's home that was being guarded by state police when the parents were still starting another day at the campsite where they'd last seen their daughter. 4:20 a.m. The car pulls up to a mailbox. Something is left. State police immediately go to the mailbox and identify what is a ransom note that had been left behind.
You know, folks, just a comment on this. The fact that the state police were guarding the home of the family of Charlotte Sena was no accident. That is procedurally so sound of them to do that. Look at what the dividend that you just paid. Someone was conducting surveillance on their house because you never know these mopes. They're not smart people. This guy drops off a ransom note in their mailbox, which this was a huge, huge piece of evidence. But procedurally, yes, this is a kidnapping. Let's put someone on the family's house. Very smart to do, and great job by the state police.
For Charlotte. State police worked diligently trying to find a match for a fingerprint. First one tried and wasn't successful. Second one was to identify any other prints in the New York State database that would be a match. The hit came at 2:30 in the afternoon. There had been a DWI in 1999 in the city of Saratoga. A fingerprint was found that matched what was found on the ransom note. So, a little more research work to identify the location and identifying the fact that there was a home they could visit. They found a double wide house with a woman, the suspect's mother. The suspect lived in the camper behind. They had what they call a dynamic entry, a tactical maneuver, and within the camper, they located the suspect. After some resistance, the suspect was taken into custody, and immediately the little girl was found in a cabinet, cupboard. She was rescued, and she knew she was being rescued. She knew that she was in safe hands.
You know, folks, as Governor Hochul said, that little Charlotte was recovered in a cabinet. Like, what does that actually mean? Will we get a picture of where she was? I mean, I don't know what that means. I don't know what type of cabinet, but how terrifying was that for this little girl? First of all, to be taken by this stranger. And then, you know, if she was, as horrific as that sounds, inside a cabinet, I don't know exactly what that means. I'd like to be interested as this investigation proceeds and we learn more about this. We learn more about the background of this Craig Ross Jr. As we learn a little bit more about his background, maybe we'll learn a little bit more about actually what occurred. But we also have to protect the privacy of little Charlotte. Now, she is, you know, obviously a victim and not someone we were looking for. So we have to protect her privacy and her family's privacy. So our right to know may be infringe upon their right to have privacy.
Her parents were immediately notified. This occurred at 6:32 this evening. The suspect, 47-year-old male named Craig Nelson Ross Jr., is still being questioned. At this moment, charges have not been brought, but they are fully expected. The daughter was transported to local hospital, as is customary And that's all the family wishes to reveal at this time. But they are united. She is in good hands. She appeared to be outwardly physically unharmed at the time. But we'll leave the rest of this information about little Charlotte to her family. Often these stories don't end up like this. Every second is key. There's a lot of pressure. Split decisions are made. Because not just a life is hanging in the balance, but a little innocent child's life is hanging in the balance. So to the teams behind me, you work quickly. You work with great urgency. You put it together, the puzzle pieces. You're able to track down the location of Charlotte through technology. But ultimately, it was the 2 SWAT teams, 1 federal, 1 state, that landed in helicopters in Boston Spa to rescue Charlotte. Still pretty overwhelming because all of us feared the worst. But I promise you, Trish and Dave, they be reunited with little Charlotte once again, and she see her 2 sisters, one 10, one 4 years old. And obviously it's a traumatic event for the family and certainly Charlotte. And we'll continue to keep this family in our prayers as they heal. But she'll be going home. That's the story. Charlotte will be going home. That's all I have to say on the details. Certainly there'll be many more coming out with respect to the suspect and how that case will proceed. I want to thank the media for their intense interest and the 400 volunteers who would not give up, 400 individuals from law enforcement, fire departments, city, county, state, and federal. It was an awesome sight to witness up at the state park yesterday. Everyone doing their job. But also, there are a lot of parents out there among the ranks. And everybody thinks, if it was my child, I would want everybody under the sun looking for them. And that's what this team did. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. We brought Charlotte home. Any questions?
Dr. Schenectady agencies involved in this case?
Charlotte's uncle was a member of the police department in Schenectady. I understand if that's not correct. Fire department.
Was the suspect known to the family?
It has not been determined that the suspect was known to the family.
That's actually a pretty good question, and we'll all be anxious to find out if the suspect is known to the family, because we understand that the address that he listed in his 1999 arrest for DWI is 2 miles from the Sena family's residence. So we would all want to know the answer to that. And as the investigation proceeds, we're going to find out some of these answers to the questions that we have that we do not yet have the answers to.
Was Charlotte randomly targeted, or did he know this?
That is what will be revealed after more extensive questioning. The vehicle registered to the suspect, the address in the database was 2 miles from Charlotte's home, but it is not known at this time whether he knew her or had her under surveillance for any length of time.
Sean?
Governor, can you say, you said a letter was delivered. Was it delivered by mail carrier? Was it delivered by a third party? Do you have that information at this point?
It appears that it was by the suspect himself, that he literally drove up to the family's mailbox, assuming they were not home.
I mean, that obviously, if the suspect drove up to their mailbox, he knew the little girl, and he knew who he was targeting. He knew where they lived, and then to deliver a ransom note into their mailbox. And as I said earlier, a great move by the state police for having the house under surveillance, and they were able to watch this car pull up and put this note inside the mailbox. Great work. Just a great procedure in a kidnapping to guard the family's home. And I'm sure it's probably in their procedure, but still, excellent job.
4:20 in the morning, opens the mailbox and inserts the ransom note, leaving a critical piece of evidence behind, his own fingerprint.
And I would assume the car details were also taken into consideration at that point for the state process.
It happened very quickly. Obviously, it's dark, it's 4:20 in the morning, so it's hard to get a description of the vehicle. But there was some sense of the type of vehicle at the time when they left. So as they're piecing together all the evidence, it came together when they did the fingerprint match. It leads you to a name, it leads you to a vehicle, and that's why we know that he had a home. His mother's home is where he was found. Again, double wide trailer, mother lives there, double wide home. He lives in a camper in the back, or at least he was there. But he also had his name was registered to a vehicle, and the address was a home 2 miles from where Charlotte lived.
And this just came out of nowhere. They just showed up at 4:30 in the morning. To your
Apparently so.
anything?
Have you spoken to Charlotte at all, or Charlotte's family, since she's been found?
I've made a number of inquiries to the family. This is a traumatic time for them as they're going through, her health, taking care of her health right now. And I'll be speaking to the parents soon, as soon as I can.
You said there was some resistance with the suspect. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
When we made the dynamic entry into the residence, he did give our SWAT operators, our SWAT people, some resistance in there. He was taken into custody. He did suffer some very minor injuries, but it was relatively minor, nothing big in the scuffle.
Great, thanks everybody.
I just want to say there's still a lot of searches underway. The home that he was registered to, a lot of information. And so we want to make sure that he's not connected with any other cases. So that's why it's still an ongoing investigation. But at this time, there's no evidence of that.
What were
At
some
the
of
end
the,
of
what were
the
some of
search,
the,
what was the extent of the search in terms of the scope area that investigators, searchers were looking at?
I'll let you answer, Carolyn. But
Are you asking about at the park?
The scope beyond the park, I've heard reports that it was beyond the park as well.
The original scope of the ground search was within the park. The information we received that took us to Ballston Spa was obviously outside the park. We had no ground search operations going on outside the park other than leads we were running down that we were developing throughout the 2 days.
Great, thank you.
what would you say were the
We're not
biggest
gonna disclose
takeaways
that.
from this massive search? What were some of the biggest takeaways from this search now that it's wrapped up?
I would say the biggest thing is you look at all these people behind us, it's cooperation of all the agencies. We don't work in silos. We have to work together to accomplish something like this. And you can never be too careful with your kids. Pay attention to where they're at, what they're doing. Things can happen in an instant. Charlotte was no more than probably 0.2 of a mile from where she was camping in a small area, and she was gone for her to ride her bike around that loop would take her about 4 minutes, 5 minutes. So you think they're safe doing that at 9 years old, but you just got to be cognizant and be paying attention to the things around you, your surroundings all the time. These things happen in a hurry. Unfortunately, today this ended in the right way.
Will there be
Any idea on the motive?
Will there be any security protocols moving forward at the park?
We'll be doing the after action report to identify any areas where the state parks can make any improvements. But obviously, this is a very random incident, and basically anyone who comes in and out of that park will have come through a certain entryway. Their name is, they purchase a ticket, you have their name in a database. So that is why that's also helpful to identify who's in the park. So that's also in a sense a security measure, because we always know who's in the park.
Did the suspect enter through the main gates?
We don't know how
You mentioned 2 helicopters. Was the arrest actually by the helicopters or was the ground?
they,
The arrest wasn't done by helicopter because of the seriousness of this incident. We brought in SWAT operators from throughout the state, and to expedite this, because obviously it was very time sensitive, we flew about 10 of our SWAT operators from downstate to be here to help with this entry. We normally operate about 6 or 8 people on a team. We had probably 20 SWAT operators make this entry with an FBI regional SWAT team. What SWORD stands for is our Special Operations Response Team. They are like most agencies have a SWAT team. We do that type of thing with our SWORD operators. They're full time in that capacity, but they also do other things that normal SWAT teams don't do. We respond to high angle rescue and different things with that team. They're a highly trained, highly capable unit that we use for just this type of thing. This is what they train for. This is what they live for, is to make entries like this and save someone's life.
all right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Pretty amazing, folks. It's again, I can reiterate. I was on the air when this was occurring. This was just going down. There was very little information out there at the time, and it's so interesting to hear how they actually did it and what actually happened. And there's so much more that we don't know in regards to the investigation. One of the things that's always common to do after a case like this, besides trying to get a statement and the full story from the perpetrator, of course, within the parameters of the Constitution and within the parameters of his rights by reading him Miranda, and we've waived Miranda, we talked to him. Search warrants. Now, that home that was listed on his 1999 DWI arrest, does he still live there? And if so, the police will be getting search warrants to search some of the locations where Craig Nelson Ross, that's the name of the perpetrator, where he lives, where he stays. And those search warrants may lead to other crimes he's committed, may lead to evidence in this case. So all of that is just so important. And the ongoing investigation, some of the questions that were being asked by the press of Governor Hochul, they weren't known. She didn't know all the answers because obviously the investigation has not yet been completed. In fact, he was still being spoken to at the time of that press conference. An interview with a perpetrator of this sort could take hours and hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, depending on how freely he's speaking. All of the information has to be acted upon. Getting a statement as to, who, what, where, when, how, and why is, of course, so important. And then at some point, the little girl has to be spoken to, hopefully by a highly skilled investigator who is very experienced in talking to children. Because already this little girl, Charlotte, has been traumatized, and we have no idea what happened to her during the 48 hours where she was taken away from her family, kidnapped out of that park. So those are some of the things we need to know, and we need to know it not just for the protection of the public, but also for the prosecution of this Craig Nelson Ross, to put him away and make sure this guy never sees the light of day again. And we know he has a criminal history. We don't know many things about his criminal history, though we know he has at least one arrest from 1999, and that's what put his fingerprints in the system. That's he's in a database called AFIS, Automated Fingerprint Identification System. And based on the ransom note that he put in the mailbox of the Sena family. That note was processed by a forensic laboratory tech that was able to lift the fingerprint and match that fingerprint to the proper person. Not only that, according to Governor Hochul, when you enter Moreau State Park, you have to buy a ticket and they take your information. And I would imagine they take down your license plate number. So it'll be interesting to find out. She couldn't answer this question because, again, some of the information is not yet known. This is early on. This is early on in this investigation. Did they have his plate down? How did he enter the park? Where did he enter the park? Did he drive a vehicle into the park? So all of those investigative questions need to be answered. People wanted to know, is this going to change the security in this park? Well, it seems to me that the security in this park is pretty good. This was a random act by, a motivated criminal that potentially we could find out in the next 24, 48 hours that he does in fact know this family, or if not know them by name or to say hello to, he knows he's had the little girl under surveillance. And that's how he may have targeted her. That's probably the proper word I was looking for. He may have targeted little Charlotte. And when he saw this opportunity, he took it, And as we said, some of the things about this case that were disturbing and scary was the fact that her bicycle was found on that path that she was riding, minus her, and her helmet also was not found at the location. That gave many investigators pause, gave many investigators reason to think, oh man, this is bad, And you could see the relief, I believe, on the faces of the police, the faces of Governor Hochul. This massive search with over 400 searches going through this park. And just an amazing outcome to this. Usually after 24 hours, you lose a little bit of hope. After 48 hours, you almost have no hope left that this is going to end with a happy conclusion. And this turned out to be the best we could have obviously hope for. When I heard the little girl was recovered and she was okay and she was going to the hospital, I thought that many people across this world, because this became an international story, were praying for this little girl, And as you pass 24 hours and then 48 hours, the hope that she's going to be recovered alive diminishes tremendously. And I could say the people that listen to Police Off the Cuff podcast, many of them were praying for this little girl. And again, I appreciate your prayers, and I think her family appreciates your prayers. Can you even imagine being the parents of a 9-year-old girl who's abducted from a park where you're there? You think everything's safe. You just saw her 5 minutes ago. What do you mean she's abducted? All of these things just are unfathomable, but yet they happen. And it happened in this case. But for the great skill and hard work of law enforcement, this could have been tragic. And law enforcement, again, I've said it a million times, they did an amazing job.
Now, after that Amber Alert for a 9-year-old girl who had vanished in a state park outside Albany, New York. Just moments ago, authorities now reporting she has been found and she's in good health. Stephanie Ramos with the details just coming in.
After a massive search for 9-year-old Charlotte Sena, who vanished from a park in upstate New York, tonight, state police announcing she has been found alive, and they say she is in good health. The family arriving just moments ago inside the park, and police say a suspect is in custody. It comes at the end of a 48-hour search.
We are leaving no stone, no branch, no table, no cabin unturned.
Charlotte Sena was last seen at 6:15 Saturday night in Moreau Lake State Park, where she was camping with her family. After riding bikes with friends around this loop, the fourth grader decided to go around one last time, alone before sunset. But when she didn't return after 15 minutes, her parents started searching. At 6:45, the bike was found along the path, but Charlotte was gone.
They came here to just have an ordinary time. The kids could have a chance to be in nature, have a chance to be kids. But instead, the day turned into every parent's nightmare.
And David, the family had been so worried, but tonight they are overjoyed. We saw friends and family coming out of the park behind us here to thank everyone for their help. There were cheers, just complete joy. Of course, we are waiting for more details surrounding Charlotte's disappearance, but tonight she is with her family. David.
Just a remarkable ending to this. We're glad she's okay. Stephanie Ramos reporting tonight. Steph, thank you.
Unbelievable, right? And you know something? Today we take, as they say, we take a victory lap, or as some politicians say, we'll spike the football today, because truly, for what we know right now, amazing. This little girl's alive, and that's something that many of us thought was not going to be possible. That it had passed 48 hours, and this was going to be. This was going to be a recovery, if anything, and so luckily that wasn't the case.
For 48 hours after disappearing from a trail in Moreau Lake State Park up in Saratoga County. Governor Hochul wrapping up a news conference with new details just seconds ago. CBS 2's Jenna DeAngelis here now with the latest. Such relief tonight, Jenna.
Seriously, everyone's breathing a sigh of relief after this story, Maurice, and we learned a ransom note was instrumental in bringing her home. Governor Kathy Hochul announced tonight police have a man in custody, 47-year-old Craig Nelson Ross Jr. Now that the little girl has been found and is a minor, out of respect for her privacy, we're going to refrain from using her name or photo.
A little girl is now in the arms of her parents, ending a massive 2-day search at Moreau Lake State Park where the 9-year-old went missing. Governor Hochul said fingerprints on a ransom note left at her parents' home led police to the suspect.
Literally drove up to the family's mailbox, assuming they were not home. 4:20 in the morning, opens the mailbox and inserts the ransom note. The hit came at 2:30 in the afternoon. There had been a DWI in 1999 in the city of Saratoga. A fingerprint was found that matched what was found on the ransom note.
State police say they identified the suspect as being in the area of the park around the time the girl went missing. Police searched multiple residences where the person is known to live, and around 6:30 Monday night found the girl in good health.
Child abductions by strangers, if that is the case here, are normally not kidnap for ransom cases. That would be unusual.
This all started Saturday during a family camping trip. The child went for a bike ride with close friends, went for one more loop on her own, and didn't return. Her family began looking for her, found her abandoned bike, and called state police, who pledged to work around the clock to bring her home.
The fact that this little girl is with her family, their family is whole again tonight. Long road to recovery. The trauma that she experienced, I'm sure, is immense.
And the governor says the suspect is still being questioned and charges are expected. State police stress this is an active investigation and they plan to hold a press briefing tomorrow where they'll provide more information about this case, but certainly a happy ending for this family tonight.
Again, guys, amazing. I can't say it enough times. Critical to know, of course, that the investigation is ongoing, and there are many more things that we may be able to find out as this investigation proceeds. There's a little more inside information on how the police found Charlotte. I'm going to play a little bit of the CNN report with Anderson Cooper, and
John Miller still here with us. With us by phone is New York Governor Kathy Hochul. Governor Hochul, thank you so much for being with us. I'm glad it's with good news to talk about. Can you just bring us up to date on what you know about what led to the discovery of her?
Yes, everyone in New York is breathing a collective sigh of relief right now. I was literally, in the arms of the parents. We were all hugging each other just yesterday as I went up to the state park, just looking at the site where the little girl had been abducted. We didn't know quite it was an abduction at that moment, but as more time unfolded, we realized that that was likely the case. We spread the search to a much larger area than the state park, checking on the cell phone pings throughout the towers, which helps you identify people who had been in the park at a certain time and where their phones were later. So the technology was a great help to us, but we spread that search around 5 counties. Also searched for known sex offenders, started identifying individuals in that category. So it was really an incredible coordinated effort from so many agencies. It was a state park, and so the state of New York State Police were involved as well as our DEC teams. But it was extraordinary to see how they traced it down to an individual's home. The home was surrounded by law enforcement and helicopters, and they were able to bring her to safety. And not long after, she was in the arms of her parents at a hospital and being transported so she can be checked out. But she is in good health, and we're so grateful for everyone who did an extraordinary job. I told her parents, I said, we will find your daughter. I said, I promise you will find your daughter. And I, as a mom, am just so grateful that she has been found safely tonight.
Governor, there's a report that there was a ransom note received. Can you tell us about that? And that perhaps there were fingerprints on that ransom note?
There was a ransom note that was left at her parents' home. And yes, the fingerprints there assisted the police in identifying the suspect.
So that ransom note was actually from the suspect?
That is what we can glean from it right now, but I have to caution that this is still very much a live investigation, and as more information that can be confirmed is available, we'll get it out there. But right now, there was a ransom note, and that was instrumental in leading us directly to the suspect.
There's also
his fingerprint was already in the database. His fingerprint was already available to law enforcement.
Can you say what kind of a database his fingerprint was in?
State police.
It's in AFIS, the automated fingerprint identification system. You put a fingerprint in there, and it searches millions of prints in a very, very quickly. So it's automated fingerprint identification system that the state has, the database.
And database, I believe.
Was that? Do you know what prior crimes he had committed?
Let me get confirmation, because we're still running down, and this is still fairly new information.
Okay.
Running down what other cases this individual may have been involved with.
Did you get information from the cell towers regarding this individual, or was this the information that led police to the residence came directly from the fingerprints on the ransom note?
Both. It also, these cell towers were pinged literally the night before. When I was there, we were checking all the different cell phones that had been in the vicinity of this park. We also knew that anyone who came into this park as a camper, we would have their information because they had to purchase a ticket. So you could start circling around possible suspects based on the cell phone data, who is in the park, and also then ultimately the ransom note. So it was a combination of all those factors that were coming to life almost simultaneously that led to the quick arrest of the suspect.
Governor Hochul, I appreciate your time tonight with this new information. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good news for our country. Everyone's been praying for, and grateful that Charlotte is back safely in the arms of her parents.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. It is the best news possible. Thank you so much, Governor. Back with our John Miller. Fascinating fingerprints on a ransom note. I mean, a ransom note, how common is that in a child abduction case?
It is very old school. Child abduction cases, if the child is taken by strangers, is
Most
usually,
child abductions are parental abductions.
the large majority are parental abductions. But when you take that out, you have 42% are taken by acquaintances. Now that doesn't mean relatives necessarily. It could just be somebody the kid knew from the neighborhood and trusted as not a threat. Then you see another 40% that are taken by total strangers. And, when you look at those in the 9-year-old girl category, that's generally going to be a sexual predator. And the prospects there, 2 or 3 days in can be very bad. In this case, with the ransom note, you see a document that they got that could have been real, could have been a hoax, but they processed it. You put it into the AFIS system, which is the automated fingerprint information system that's going to scan it against every prisoner who's ever been arrested on a felony charge in New York State, and other databases. It comes up with a match of a name. As the governor explained, you can then say, okay, who is this person? Do we have a record of a cell phone? Was that cell phone pinging in Moreau State Park at the time of the abduction? Did that person or another person who's related to them buy a ticket? And then you get to that first location, second location, because you're looking at, okay, so where after that abduction did that cell phone ping? How many addresses? And, you're going to have to go get a warrant and search each one of those. And, under these exigent circumstances, you move very quickly. And it is a great thing that it worked out this well.
So, yeah, amazing. John Miller, thank you so much. On the safe recovery.
So amazing, folks, and amazing results to this. You could see everyone that's involved in this case. Even the media is so happy that it turned out this way. And I know I always harp upon the art and the science of investigation. And of course, the art form of doing actually the grunt work, the searching for the child, the processing, the information, and then the science, and putting how about the art being putting a car on the residence of the family? Simple, right? But it paid dividends, didn't it? Yeah, that's part of the art of investigation. Now we talk about the science. The cell phone pings. I mentioned that early in the investigation, something called geofencing. And it's not inexpensive for the state to do that, but it can track every cell phone being used in a specific area, the pings going to a specific tower, and have the numbers. So they can potentially, the kidnapper had his phone with him and it pinged the tower inside or near that park. Brilliant, right? And of course, the fingerprint, lifting a fingerprint from a piece of paper. It's not the simplest thing to do. And then to get a hit, to search AFIS, the automated fingerprint identification system in the state, and put all of these things together and come up with the name of a perpetrator. Just the art and the science of investigation. So, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. This is late, but I'm going to play this early tomorrow morning. So when you wake up, you're going to have this addition to all the coverage playing probably at 8 o'clock this morning. But thank you so much for your support of Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. A happy ending to this kidnapping abduction. And I think all the prayers that folks said for this little girl, Charlotte, paid dividends. And again, the skill of the state police, the FBI, and everyone in law enforcement, you're the best. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon. Have a great night, great morning, if that's when you're going to be watching this.
One episode just ain't enough.